and welcome to week 4 of our 6-week Roots Culture conversation. Just as a recap, we've talked about a couple of different ways to get here where we are today. In the first week, we talked about how I show up. Culture begins with how we show up in the moment. It was about us individually. The second week, we said how I see others. The way we see people shapes how we lead them. That was week 2. Last week, we talked about the conversations that matter. The theme last week was culture is created and changed in conversation. And that one was especially, I don't know, close to my heart because my major in college was communication. And I really believe that if we can crack this nut, everything else becomes a lot easier. So there's a book I read several years ago now called The One Thing. And that book was so good because the main question in that whole book was, what's the one thing I could do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? And if we can find that one thing, if what's the one thing that I could do such that by doing it, everything would become easier or unnecessary, to me, it's communication. Figuring out how to say what needs to be said, say it when we see it, you know, create dialogues over discussions, all those kinds of things. So thank you for being with us last week to talk about that. So this week, our theme is, what is this really? That's the name of this week. What is this really? And the theme is discernment comes before action. Discernment comes before action. So we're going to talk about discernment today. And so I'd like to just start with one question for all of you. What, oh, by the way, I'm going to back up a second. Last week's assignment was have one conversation this week you've been putting off, but go in with curiosity, not certainty. So I would love to know from anybody who's willing to share, did you do that and what happened? No, we're not frozen. I love how you all just muted. That was pretty darn funny. I'm going to mute so I don't get called on. Did you have a conversation this week you'd been putting off, but went in with curiosity, not certainty? I'd like to know what happened. And I can make an assumption that you didn't, which is fine. I'm not, you know, I'll never call you out. I will say that if that's something didn't do, we didn't do, I'm curious what we can do so that we take what we're talking about on Thursdays from Thursday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. What would help us practice these things we're talking about? Because as much as I love presenting and doing this thing, it's not just a Thursday activity. I'd like to know from you what we might be able to do so that you try these things and practice them. And if you have ideas, I'm wide open to it.
So Jody, I can't speak to a professional conversation that I
Okay.
had, but in a personal
Yeah.
form, it wasn't necessarily one I was putting off, but one that presented itself. And
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I think my mind was blown with the information that I received,
Wow.
um, by being more curious and approaching it that way rather than how I would have maybe typically approached it. Um, I got a lot more insight,
Wow.
and it furthered the discussion. Uh,
Wow. But it surprised you.
oh, yeah.
Really?
Probably not in a way that I was prepared for.
Okay, okay. But that's good. So it's curious that when you go in thinking you already know the answer, and then you change up the way you go in and you get so much more. Was it productive, Amanda? Was it frightening? Was it shocking? What was it for you?
It was shocking, but much needed, I guess. A lot more
Oh,
information came out than I expected, and I'm so thankful that it turned out
oh,
the way it did. Uh,
great, great, great.
Because
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
yeah, it furthered more conversations, I guess.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, curiosity opens the door because certainty closes it, right? Certainty kills curiosity. So if we go in already certain, it's like we're already listening for something we already know. We're not doing this on purpose, by the way, you guys. We're not doing this like consciously, I don't think. But when you did it consciously, Amanda, you were surprised by what came out.
Mhm.
And by the way, thank you for reminding us, Amanda, that everything we talk about here is certainly not only for use at work, right? Everything I do, it's what I've built my career on, is to be transferable. So the skills we're learning here are transferable to all parts of our lives. They're not just in the role you have. Because I really don't know what you all do. I think you're all pretty good at what you do. I'm not here to help you be better at what you do. I'm here to help open you up to who you be. So that was a super perfect example, Amanda. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else? Jenny, I saw your camera or your unmute go on, off, whatever. We just can't see you.
Amen.
Are you having some computer issues, Jenny? Maybe?
Here.
No, it's
Your
very,
audio's in and out.
yeah. Okay, so there it went out. We'll let you see if we can get you back, Jenny. Anybody else have thoughts about this?
I liked your share, Amanda. I know I used it professionally a few times. I can't talk about that, but personally, I went in on something differently than I normally would have because I'm
Mm,
normally crabby and defensive already.
mm,
I didn't get more information than I wanted, but I think I wound up understanding the frustration on somebody else's part instead of just focusing on mine. And kind of to that point too that you were talking about, Jody, we're at the halfway point, right, for roots. I think you had mentioned that and kind of re-engage and working with you in this group on this. I've had to be more intentional about the things that I'm working on and why. And I have to think about that. And it's been a while, I think that since I've been that intentional. So it has to go on my calendar and I have to look at it every couple days to remember what I'm trying to work on and trying to implement it in the things that are happening day to day. Because when you think about it and you look at it in the morning, it does come up in real time, like when things are happening. And I think that's helped me ask a lot more questions
mm.
or even be aware of how I might be coming off or perceived. Because I don't think anybody probably wants that. But when you've got other things going on, stress does happen.
For sure, Shelley. Thank you. We're all human, you guys. We're all, and I'm going to give us all the benefit of the doubt. All of us who are here on this call or, listening, you guys are here because you want to be. I don't think any of you had like, anything hanging over your head saying you have to come to this thing. You're making a choice to come, and I just want to acknowledge you for that because you don't get into a situation overnight, so you're not going to get out of it overnight. Meaning, if we want to be better at communicating or better at curiosity or whatever it is we're working on, it's going to take some time and it's going to take baby steps in that direction. So thank you for that reminder too, Shelley, that this is something that if we're not intentional about remembering, gravity pulls us back. It's just what gravity does. It pulls us back to the way we've always done it. And we're just interested in seeing if there are ways we could enhance what we've been doing. And that's what these calls are about. So thank you for that, Shelley. So they are maybe they're a little bit cumulative, meaning you go with week one, and then you add week two, and you add week three, and now we're adding week four. So it's not like you do one and you're done. You don't just work on yourself and then you're done. Then you work on others, then you're done. Then you work on conversations and you're done. You add to it. And so what we want to talk about today is discernment. Discernment. Does anybody want to take a stab at what I might mean when I say discernment before you decide? You guys are quiet today.
And how we grasp something or how we perceive it, maybe.
How we grasp it, how we perceive it. Yes, that's discernment. Great. Thanks, Jenny. Could be a process. Like, how do I learn how to grasp something? What have I done in the past that's worked, maybe? When I say worked, by the way, when I say worked, whenever I say that, what works and what doesn't, I'm not implying that there's a right and a wrong way to do anything. I'm implying that if you have an outcome in mind, if you have a destination, then at least you know what you're shooting at or shooting for. If you don't have a destination, it's like getting in your car and just driving around. You just waste gas and waste time. Having a destination, having a vision, having an outcome in mind is what we're going toward. So it can be anything. It could be your family, it could be a work problem, it could be anything. And when you have a destination in mind, that's where all of these things we're talking about are going to be helpful. So when you think about the question, what is this really? I might ask to think of a moment this past week where something came up quickly, something you didn't plan for, something unexpected happened. It could be at work, it could be at home. And I'm just curious, what did you do when that something unexpected came up for you? What did you do?
Change my plans or
So what happened, Jenny? Can you tell us a little bit more?
but I can't do this or that and just reschedule the time and go from there.
Yep. So you had something in mind, something planned, something else came up for you or someone else, and you had to adjust on the fly, it sounds like, Jenny.
Yep, yep.
Reschedule. Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Readjust, reschedule on the fly. What else? And maybe I'll ask you, how did you feel about it? Not just what did you do, but how did you feel about it when something unexpected came up for you?
Sometimes it's kind of frustrating. It depends on what it is. In this case, something I had to miss out on, which, it's unfortunate. I really wanted to do what I was going to do, but I then they couldn't. So what do you do? I just
Mm.
gotta.
Yeah, what do you do? I wanted to do this thing and something else came up. What do you do? How do you feel? You can be frustrated, as you said, Jenny. This seems a little bit obvious, I think, right? I mean, something comes up and you have to make an adjustment. How do you feel? You can be upset, you can be frustrated. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm just going to say for me, I I have always been someone who does the planning of things and I'm not loving that, but if I don't plan it, nobody will do it. So things like with friends, going out, doing something. I seem to always be the one who calls. Like, hey, you want to go out and have a beer? Hey, you want to go out and do this thing? And I get attached. I get attached to that. So I have this friend. She's still a really good friend, but I call her to do stuff and she says yes, and then she changes at the last minute. And I get kind of attached to this thing. I get like, yay, we're going to a movie, or yay, we're doing this thing, or whatever. And I get in my mind about, yay, I'm looking forward to this thing. And probably she's done it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, not forever and not every time. But I remember those times when she either cancels or just doesn't show up. And then I start not trusting her. And I'm being completely transparent with you in this because this is not something I'm proud of. And yet I have done that. I have done that because I get too attached, I think, to like the experience of it, or like going to this place or doing this thing or seeing my friend or having a conversation, whatever it might be. And so sometimes, Jenny, like you said, I can get resentful. I can get upset and frustrated. And that's when I know for myself that I've gotten attached. I've gotten too attached to what I wanted it to be. And I lost my objectivity and maybe my compassion in some ways. Something came up. Something came up. We have to adjust when something comes up. At least that's what I understand. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. How do we decide, you guys? How do we decide? What's this gray area in the middle where we decide whether we are mad or we adjust or we pivot or what is this space? And I'm calling this space discernment. Because what I'd like to know from you, and I have some ideas about this myself, but what are in this gray area, are there certain buckets you would put a situation into so that you know how to decide what to do? Is it a relationship issue? Is it an operational issue? Is it an informational? Are there buckets that help you decide what action you want to take and how you respond? I'm just curious. I see Shelley nodding. Travis.
Yeah, I think with our contracted side, we have a lot of changes and it's
Mhm.
tough. Sometimes it's tough to adjust. You kind of get your set ways and you want to kind of roll with it, and then someone changes on you and it kind of frustrates you. But really, we gotta kind of think about the big picture, I think, most of the time. That's kind of the biggest part I kind of notice here is, I get a call and we gotta do this now. Well, okay, well, I already have this set in mind. Well, okay, what's important thing to do? Do we gotta do it or not, or do we get upset about it? So
Mhm. That's really good. So it's priorities, kind of, it
it
sounds like.
is. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta just weigh it out, is it worth getting that over? Is it worth just thinking about, okay, what's the best for the company and whatever else? So
Mm. Yeah, what's the best for the company? That's really a good perspective because sometimes what's best for me and what's best for the company aren't the same thing. It sounds like. Is that true?
right. Yeah,
Right.
because sometimes it's, well, no more work for me. I gotta go do this now and
Mhm.
take care of that. But really I need to, handle and do it. So
So then you make a decision in that space to pivot to you
yeah.
you have to adjust to what is best for the company, it sounds like.
Yep.
Awesome. How often does that happen, Travis?
Uh 3 times a day, 4 times a day.
So-
We change. We're always on change, and there's always something comes up, something happens. I mean, it might be once, twice a day sometimes.
Mm.
It's what it is. You kind of get used to it. You got to adjust on the fly a lot. So
What I hear in that for you is you're building a muscle that you might not even intend to build, and that is resilience. You're
yeah,
building resilience and flexibility, maybe.
yeah. Before I probably get upset over it. Now I got kind of just kind of go with it and do it. Like I said, what is the best
Mhm.
route? So not get upset about it and think about it. So
Is it ever that your idea or your what's best for you overrides what's best for the company? Because sometimes you might need to make a decision that, no, I know the situation better than somebody else. Has
yeah,
that ever
that's
happened?
communication. We talk it
Mhm.
out. Then okay, I might know something someone else doesn't. Okay, so let's talk it out and what makes sense to do it. Do we want to do this instead, or what's going on, or what's more important? So yeah, I mean, it's kind of communication is the biggest part that we got to have on all of it.
Yeah. Okay, you're my favorite right now. That was awesome. No, but communication, right? If we don't, because at some point, I might have told you guys this story. This is just coming to me. I'm gonna riff for a second because I love what you just said. Have I told you the story about Bobby the football player? I'm going to tell you again if you've heard it before. So here's the story. Bobby is a football player, a high school football team, and he is the fourth string quarterback and the backup. Well, he's the punter and the fourth string quarterback. So in this game, they're playing this game and it's really close. And their starting quarterback has gone out in the first quarter with an injury, so they have their backup in, and then their backup second string quarterback also gets hurt. So now the third string quarterback is in and they're at the end of the game. It's 6-3. They're ahead. And their third string quarterback goes out with an injury, so Bobby has to come in. He's the fourth string quarterback. So he hasn't had any practice. He doesn't really know what he's doing in this role. But his coach says to him, "We're ahead. We're ahead of the game. It's the end of the game. We're way down the field. We have to go all the way to the other end of the field, but I trust that we're going to do this. All we're going to do, it's almost at the end of the game. Play one, the first play, you take the ball and run to the left. On the second play, you take the ball and run to the right. Third play, you take the ball and run right up the middle. And on the fourth down, I want you to back up and punt because you're the punter. Okay. So run to the left, run to the right, run up the middle, and then punt. And Bobby says, got it, coach, got it, got it. So he takes the ball on the first down and he runs to the left and he gains 7 yards. And then he takes the ball on the second down and he runs to the right and he gains 8 yards. Now we're at first down, right? And then he gets to go a third down. He's supposed to go right up the middle. He goes right down the middle onto the like he's down to the 6-inch yard line and he gets tackled. So he backs up on fourth down. And what do you suppose he does? He backs up and he punts the ball and it goes into the parking lot because he's at the 6-inch line. If you know anything about football, you know what I'm talking about. And the coach is beside himself and he runs out in the field and he grabs Bobby by the shoulder pads and he goes, Bobby, what were you thinking when you punted that football? And Bobby says, I was thinking I have just about the dumbest coach in all of football. Because Bobby did what the coach told him, because Bobby was told on the fourth time you have the ball, you back up and you punt. No need to think for himself, right? So that just reminded me, Travis, of what you said, because at some point we have to be willing to have that conversation because we're the ones on the field. We're the ones in the middle of the play, right? And maybe we know something that communication would help. So I'm really glad you said that. And so it's your fault that I went into that whole story, Travis, about football player. But I think it kind of relates, right? If we're afraid to make our own decisions, if we're afraid to give more information to the situation, because I don't know why, because what will get in trouble, I don't know why we would not do that. But all of us have reasons why. Jenny, were you going to add something? I just watch when mics are unmuted. So I
Well,
just,
I was just gonna say to Travis too, I think that maybe with age older we get, the more patient. We don't get worked up. Like you just punt, you do it, and you just don't worry about it, right? Like, when I was younger, maybe I would get upset. We're a little more easy going in your 40s, and then you get in your, yeah, just
so with
sort
age, we get wisdom, right, Jenny?
of kind of, right.
So you're not as worked up about things. And maybe we're more confident. Maybe we gain confidence as we go. Um, maybe we don't punt when the coach tells us to punt because we know that's not the right thing to do. It's not best for the company. And so in that space, there's this gray area where you as leaders have to decide what's the best thing to do in this case. And so I call this discernment, taking time to, and by the way, it doesn't have to take a ton of time to do this, but it's a process of what is the best thing for the situation. And the way I describe this is to line up the eyes, I call it, your intelligence. So you get all your information, you do your research, do whatever you need to do, gain your intelligence. I call that your intelligence. Use your heart, your intuition. What does your heart say? What would be the right thing for the people involved? Would this be a place for communication? What does your heart say? And then your gut. And your gut is there, your instinct. Your gut is there to keep you safe. That fight, flight, freeze, fawn. That's a new one that was added to that for me. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Your gut is there to protect you. Some of us make decisions from our gut only. Some of us make decisions from our heart only. And some of us make decisions from our head only. Intellect, intuition, instinct. If we can line them up, take enough time to invite all three of those components, we probably will make a better decision. But it is a process. And it takes, like I said, it takes time, effort, intention to do that. So can you think of a time when you maybe made a decision that didn't turn out so well? Because maybe you didn't use all three. Safe space, by the way. And we learn from mistakes. So go ahead and share a mistake. You're lying if you've never made a mistake, you guys. I know. What's something you did when you didn't take all three of those into account? This is when we need the Jeopardy music. Do 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 do. I knew it, Ben. Thank
I
you.
guess,
You're my
I guess
favorite. You're my favorite.
out there. So personally, this happened yesterday. I know I asked my kid to take out my older kid to take the dog out before he left because school ended yesterday for him, and I trusted that he would, and then I let somebody else make me believe that he didn't, and I blamed him for it, and I tried to validate it. I tried to use my mind to check that he did do what I thought he did, and I was led astray. And so yeah, I didn't have all three parts. My gut told me that he would do it. My mind told me that he didn't do it, and so I ended up in a situation where I blamed him for something, and then I had to walk that back and say,
Mm.
nope, I'm really sorry, and um, thank you for being responsible, and I'm sorry that I misjudged the situation. But yeah, it was I didn't have all three lined up, and I made the wrong call, and then I had to account for it later. So.
That's such a great example. And I'm betting it's not the first time it's happened with your kids or you or them the same way,
Well,
doing the
and
same thing.
especially he has become much more responsible than he used to be. He's a young adult. He's 18 now, but his younger teens were a little bit troublesome. So we've been working on this, trust and accountability between him and I. And this was a moment where my improper judgment, my head and my gut not being lined up,
Mhm.
kind of made me treat him like not the person he was. And so just sort of felt really bad about that and had to go ahead and correct that.
Well, and you're bringing up a good point too, Ben. His behavior earlier in his life would have warranted the way you assumed. It sounds
Mhm.
like, right? You said he was a troubled kid, maybe what he had been being. Just everybody for a second, insert person at work here in this story. Insert person you've worked with for a while here. Because if the old previous, let's say, behavior would be that's the way this person is, and we don't have the awareness to see them in a new light, because everybody changes, everybody has the opportunity to change. We would, of course, treat the situation the way it had always been. I completely understand that. The key to what I heard you say, Ben, is you owned it and you rectified it. It sounds like pretty quickly. It didn't go very long. I mean, it just happened yesterday.
Yeah, no, he came back and said, "No, I did do it." And then I went back and I went and validated the facts that made me believe he didn't, and noticed that I made a mistake, and went back and was just, hey, I'm really sorry. You did do it, and I should have trusted you to do it, and I'm sorry for jumping to the wrong conclusion. You're being really responsible, and I appreciate that.
How did he take that?
Um, well, he's a teenager who texts me, so
Uh,
he didn't respond. I think he took it well.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And it's hard because like you said, texting, we've talked about that before too. Texting, the words we have, we only get 7% of the whole message right there anyway. So seeing body language, hearing tone can help too. But so the way we um, respond is different than the way we react. Do you remember us talking about that distinction? Reaction comes from emotion and it's almost always just knee jerk, quick reaction. Response will require us to take a breath at least and take our um, the way we respond to our brain instead of only our emotions. And it's so easy to knee jerk react because we've been so quick. And yeah, at work, people want something from us. They want it now. We got to get to it right now. And we have trained people in some cases that, oh, if I send you an email, you'll get it back to me in 2 seconds. I used to work in real estate. That was a big deal in real estate. My real estate agents would say, but if I don't get back to them, they'll go to somebody else. I have to have my phone on 24/7 and I have to be here and do this. And then that's what they were training their people to expect from them. Instantaneous response. And it wasn't always a response, it was a reaction because they were upset and mad. So I hate to say this because it's hard to hear sometimes, but Don't be upset with what you've tolerated. Don't be upset with what you've tolerated. And I'll add, Jody, don't be upset with what you've tolerated. Because if I've tolerated them, I'm available 24/7. It's what they've come to expect from me. This is what I need to do. And then I pivot, that can throw a wrench in everything. Like you said, Travis, you said it's communication. You said when pivots happen, and I'm going to make an assumption here, Travis, you've gotten better at not being frustrated and upset by it,
Right. That's correct. Yeah.
but over time, probably.
Yeah, right away you probably get defensive, kind of, geez, we're not doing that there. I got this plan set up and we want to roll with this, but now you got to kind of look at the big picture and it's like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. We probably should do this, rotate, let's do this instead. So yeah, kind of flexibility more so.
Flexibility. Yes, 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 yes. And then people can come to expect from you that you're not going to snap at them or be upset with them when changes come up.
It still might happen, but
Well, yeah.
not as much. So yeah.
But then in Ben's case, right, then you have an opportunity to clean it up.
Yes. Yep. You get all the facts and figure out what's the best thing, and then we kind of talk it out. And we got a lot of guys talking, and communication with men ain't always the best. So,
Well,
yeah,
and we can change that. We
yeah,
can.
yeah,
You guys who are here, you're good communicators. I know you. I know you in person. I know that you all. You
yeah.
have it in you to do that. And so you can set a very, very good example in the way you do it. So thanks for that. I love that. And because then here's the thing, we're all human. We're all going to make, if we're playing big enough, we're going to make a mistake. If we're playing big enough, we're going to make a mistake. And then we get to clean it up and be an example. Amanda.
Yeah, I would just agree with that. I find that one question I ask on a regular basis, probably to a lot of people here on the call, is what what can I expect, or what can the customer expect, just so that I'm relaying that, because what I think should happen or what the customer thinks should happen might not be reality. So I do find that when I'm working with different individuals within the company, I just want to set the customer's expectation right. Um, and my own too,
Sure,
so being able
sure.
to communicate that back.
Well, you're the liaison kind of, aren't you, between the production and the client?
Yeah.
And so you have to do that in order to be a good representative of the company, I would think. So you're not asking to be a jerk, Amanda. You're asking because you need information,
Yeah, right. And just making
right?
sure that everyone's communicating on the same
Mhm.
page too.
Mhm.
So,
I find it interesting how sometimes when people ask questions, like you just implied, like, what can I expect? What is the timeline? It's so interesting to know how we receive that. How do you receive that? Do you receive that as a gotcha? Or they're trying to catch me at something, or she's being so mean, or I mean, there are lots of ways we can hear those requests too. Oh, he doesn't trust me, or she thinks or but what you're saying, Amanda, is it's clarity. I need information for clarity, no other reason. And so that's where other people's impression of you is none of your business. Doesn't that sound weird? What other people think of me is none of my business. If I ask a question for clarity and they assume I'm nosy or I'm, I don't know, mean or something, that's not my issue. But that's where what Travis said comes in. It's communication. It's communication. And then so Amanda, why do you need that information? Why do you need that? That's a tone of voice thing, right? 38% of the message is how it sounds. And then it would be up to us to go, that person's, I'm making an assumption about that person. And I'd have to say, okay, so you just your voice told me something else. Are you upset about something? Because can I give you more information? Can we talk about this? Like you said, Travis, what do we do with that? And you guys, I'm telling you, it takes time up front, but it saves time on the back end. So it's so worth it because then people know what they can count on you for.
I think a lot of our miscommunications is on text and emails. Instead
Mhm,
of calling the person, they're
mhm,
gonna text it. They take it the wrong way. They're
mhm,
thinking, why you need that, why you want that, but you're just really either helping or trying to
mhm.
assist or find out some information, and then it's taken the wrong way.
Right, 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 right. And we can make up so many stories in our heads. I bet he's this. I bet she's that. I mean, it's a story we make up in our head that's about how it was taken wrong. And great point about how emails and texts, that's only 7% of the message. Pick up the phone. Tell me more about this. Help me understand this. I heard this wrong. I'm making up a story in my head that I have about the dumbest coach in all of football. So help me understand it so that I don't jump to that conclusion. And it's gonna take some effort on our parts, you guys. And I'm saying it's worth it. Sarah.
This just really reminds me of Brene Brown, Paint It Done. Um, I just think it's so powerful when I read that getting that extra clarity and empowering people to say like, okay, can you give me the full picture? Like to you, what is the complete doneness of what you need from me or what it is, and just allowing that to happen. And it could be three clarifying questions, it could be an hour-long conversation, but just empowering people around you, like, okay, this is how I envision it, this is how I'm communicating it to you. Does that make sense? And then allowing people to say, like, well, can you paint this done? Do you mean this or do you mean that? Because if you don't get those clarifying pieces, both parties are going to get frustrated because the communication is there. So just want to bring that up.
That's such a good thing. She uses that a lot. Paint done for me. Paint done
Yeah.
for me, she says. What I love that you brought that up. What does it look like when it's done? What do you need from me? The context is what we're asking for, so we know how our piece of it fits. It's not so I can be nosy or I'm best. And you might say this about yourself too. I'm best when I know X. I'm best. I can give you the best product when I know how it fits. There are ways to say this without, you know, being a jerk. So that was great. Thanks, Sarah, for that. And thanks, Amanda, for that. So where do you think you personally might jump too quick to solving something? Have you had experience where you've jumped too quick and you've tried to solve something and you found out, ooh, this wasn't actually the right problem? I see some nods.
For me,
Anybody
that's
want
something that I've had to work on a lot
to?
lately.
Okay.
And it's as we've been talking, that discernment, it all really does play in together. And earlier this week, Sarah, I talked about paint done. So I like that drawn too. But, you know, think when you don't let your head in and you move quick, whether it's those quick decisions or you move too fast, that's when you're letting somebody down. You wind up doing work that wasn't painted done from the setup. And I think that's where lots of frustration can happen and miscommunication and all of the things. And then when it comes to like that discernment too, I think we've all been in different parts of it. And something I know I have to really think about and work on is this something that's already, is this happening? Has it already been decided on? And do I just need to raise a concern or ask some clarifying questions to better understand why we landed here? Or is it something that we are still in the phases and we're collecting feedback? And, is this a place where that's needed and valued? Because it can kind of go both ways. But know when it is your wheelhouse, when you do have that real concern that is going to cause an issue later. Those are things that I know I've been having to really think about and work on.
And what that might also require, I guess, Shelley, is not working too quickly, not wanting to jump too soon, it sounds like. And how has that impacted the way other people see you? Like, oh, she's taking more time now.
I'm sure.
And then what is that for you then? How do you deal with that?
To be determined.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think I think the follow-up, it comes in the follow-up conversations. I think once the immediate need has happened, and there has been a couple times, where I've had to, you go back and you don't email, you have the conversation because the assumptions need to get calmed, here's the person out, you hear them out, and the next day we're working on something different. But you
Mm,
can't just not explain it or have that follow-up either, because then I think it just will continue and spiral, and it'll be a different situation 5 weeks ago or
mm.
5 weeks different, and
Yeah, down the road.
you
It,
wind up in that kind of a process again on a
right.
different circumstances.
It sounds like a below the line and above the line, doesn't it? Because when we fall below the line, remember, we want to be right. We're committed to being right over being curious.
Yep.
And so if we find ourselves feeling defensive, like we need to justify something, I can see how we'd want to rush to prove and show them I'm not stupid. I didn't do it. Whatever. Prove our intention, maybe.
Yeah, and it's not usually productive in the moment. It needs to I think depending on what the situation is, right? Sometimes you just need to get
Hmm.
through the circumstances and then have the follow-up, or have alignment before action is taken too.
Oh, yeah.
That's the other
That's good.
thing. It just depends
Alignment
on what the
before.
situation is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Alignment before action. I really like that. Alignment before action. So if you consider that in this space we're talking about right here, we haven't actually taken the action yet. In the discernment, it's the process that comes before the action. So in that space where I have to decide before I act, sometimes we don't stay in this space. We just do, right? I might have told you last time about if I have, I'm sorry. I speak to so many groups these days. I'm not sure who I've said what to, but the joke or the riddle was five frogs on their log. Did you hear that one? There are five frogs on a log. Three decide to jump off. How many are left on the log? Why? Why two, Shelley?
Because that's how math works. Is this a trick
Decision.
question?
Decision is not action. Five are on the log. Three decide to jump off. How many are left? Five, because deciding and doing are not the same thing. And in this space we're talking about today, it's deciding, deciding, deciding. What am I going to do? What action am I going to take? If we jump too soon, jump before we decide, we're not doing that on purpose then. We're doing it out of a reaction and the way it's always been around here, or the way I've always done it, or all of those things that I'm not saying are wrong. Yet, if we want to get more aligned, more intentional, fewer opportunities to rework or have to apologize, Ben, to go back and say, I made a mistake, then up front, again, it might take longer, a little bit longer. Yet we can probably be a little bit more sure that the person who's making that decision has taken time. We can trust a little bit more, maybe. And I'm telling you all this as a whole, theme of the today because so few people do this. Discernment is not always a part of a decision-making process. We do it because we've always done it. You've heard that before. We've always done it this way, or we've never done it this way. We can't do it if we've never done it this way before. But you know very well your company is always expanding, always growing. Growth is not static. Personal growth is not static. It's dynamic. It's moving. It's growing. And if we are deciding together in this stage that we want to be above the line as much as possible, above the line is open, curious, committed to learning, then we will know when we fall below the line, closed, defensive, committed to being right. And we'll be able to own that right up front. I know Jess isn't here, but remember a couple weeks ago when Jess said, I'm going to go below the line for a second. I mean, she's so good at saying that and knowing when this is a below the line thing and I just need to get it out. We all need to do that. We all need to do that sometimes. And that's what happens in this messy stage, this messy discernment before we've made the decision. You guys are doing, Augusta, you were saying you're doing painting and renovation and stuff's happening up your way.
Yep.
Do you suppose somebody decided what they were going to do before they actually did it?
I mean, I hope so. It'd
That's
be
just
pretty chaotic if they started painting and then changed colors, right? So,
right, right. And at some point, somebody was involved in the decision-making process to renovate. And I don't know if you had a say in what color it was going to be painted.
Nope,
So you could be mad about that.
I could be.
Yeah. How come nobody asked me?
Right.
Yet,
I wanted to paint it lime green, you know?
how would that have gone over? But like Travis said earlier, I mean, at some point you have to pick your battles. Not, I don't even want to call it battles, but pick where you're willing to stand. And at some point, it's best for the company. And I'm going to trust that somebody somewhere had a process in place where they decided before they just did, right? I mean, any project that you've been working on, Joanne, I know you have a big project you're working on. What kinds of things are we in that space of? You know, what are you having to gather information about in your head? I told you about my bike, right? I bought a bike. I bought an e-bike. Love my e-bike, but it took 2 months for me to get all my information. My heart was like, I just really want to be someone who rides bike because right now I'm not doing anything. I'm not active. I want to be more active. And then my gut was what's safe, what will keep me from, getting into accidents, which, I had one anyway, but I'm fine. Uh, but there will be risk to everything, I suppose, at some point. But that was a 2-month process, gathering information, doing the thing, figuring it all out. It didn't happen overnight. And so sometimes in this process, especially as it relates to us as humans and relationships, there's a lot we could learn without jumping to conclusions. And you might notice for yourself when in your mind you think things like, "Oh, I bet he meant this," or "I bet this is what they did that for." If we don't check those hunches with the people we're making the judgments about, we're going to stay stuck. Anybody watch Ted Lasso? I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan. Okay, a couple nods. Ted Lasso, this is not a Ted Lasso thing. He took it from somebody else, but he'd always say, "Be curious, not judgmental." Do you remember him saying that in one of his mantras? Be curious, not judgmental. Be curious, not judgmental. And if you just say that to yourself over and over again, you'll be curious and not judgmental. Because if you're judgmental, you make up a decision. You jump to a conclusion. I know this is what he meant. I know he was being a jerk. I know he's being nosy. I know she's whatever story you're making up in your head. So one of the things in this messy middle, this process is check your hunches. Ben, you did that. And you gave us such a great example. But you checked and then you validated, right? You went back and said, "Ooh, I made a mistake. I thought it was this. It wasn't that. I want to apologize and own the decision I made or the choice or the action I took," right? I feel like I'm talking a lot today. You guys are so quiet. How does this relate to you, or does it? Does it relate to you at work, this process of discernment? Tell me in your specifics. I mean, you did, Sarah, a little bit. You did in your specifics. Um, you gave me a couple examples, but how does this relate? I mean, in IT or in operations or in HR, or sales.
I think when you can take the time to have discernment, I think for me personally, just over the last 4 weeks as we've been going through some of these things, um, I learned that from my own aspects, sometimes it's just like a control thing for
Huh.
me, you know,
Yeah.
like I feel like it's out of control if, but just to sit back and say like, why am I having an emotion about it or something? Just to figure that out before taking action is helpful. And then
Mhm.
also implementing the positive thoughts is has been very helpful as well. But you learn a lot about yourself when you take a minute to think about something before you respond.
Super. I love that. That's kind of the point, Amanda. That's kind of the point of leadership. That's why these classes or sessions are here for us who have decided to go first in that direction, even if it's not clear. And the whole point is to learn, like you said, learn about ourselves. There's really no, I don't know, I suppose there's no positive meaning toward action without that discernment, because everything would be reaction and everything would be, you know, you'd be having to clean up a lot more messes, I think. Well, that's great. Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts about that? I have a question for you, another one then. If you think about this, what we're talking about, how often in your experience at NPR is what you have to discern something about? How often is it about people? And how often is it about process? I'm just curious. How often is it about people that you have to be in discernment or process? Is it about one more than the other? Josh.
Personally, I think they kind of go hand in hand, at least from our department's perspective. We're trying to make all of our processes better, but um, we don't typically put the inputs in. So we have discernment in order to um, make our processes better for the people that use them. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're doing processes so that the people have an easier time with the things they need from
We're
you.
trying to.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point, Josh. They're trying to, finance and whatever department. Well, insert your department here. If we assume negative intent, then we assume everybody's trying to make our lives worse. If we fall into that mindset of, I bet they're trying to make our jobs harder, we'd find evidence to prove we're right. But when Josh just said we're trying to make the processes better for the people, then we come into every problem we have with a positive intent. I bet they're trying to do the best they can with what they know. And even if you bring that energy with you into any problem, I bet you'll have a clearer head in this discernment process because you're not going to be making assumptions that people are trying to make your life harder. So I like how you said that, Josh. It's both. And the processes don't talk back.
No, they don't. They might flag errors, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what we ask it to do, right? That's what we
Yeah.
want them to do. So this week, for next week, as we're moving into this next week, um, your assignment, I guess, if you have an assignment, is in one real moment, like something that's really happening in the moment, pause and say to yourself, what is this really? What is this really? What is this situation with my kids? Or what is this situation with the daycare or with my processes or with somebody who's asking something? What is this really? What is this really? Is this somebody with being impatient? Is it, what is it? Because that will remind you that you have this space of discernment. Discernment. You can say, my head, my heart, my gut. Information. Do I have all the information? What does my heart say? Am I assuming negative intent or positive intent? And then my gut is, sometimes you just got to go with your gut. So any final thoughts, any questions you have about this whole process of discernment before action? It doesn't have to take hours or weeks or months or years. This process does not have to take that. But sometimes it will take longer than you want it to. When you got a project and you want to get it done, Sometimes it takes longer than you want it to. And I'm sure you've had episodes in your life where you've acted too quickly. I wish I would have had more information. I wish I would have taken more time. The paint in the office was green and I wanted it to, or I wanted lime green, but we had to go with what it was. Man, if they would have only listened to me. Well, if we didn't offer our opinion, we can't be mad at them for what they chose. And that's where, coming back to Travis, the communication, right? It's communication. And if you decide, Augusta, that it's not worth the conversation about lime green, I'm going to be okay with whatever it is, then we have to accept that, because otherwise we get mad at what we've tolerated. And then it goes back to what Amanda said about self-awareness. You learn a lot about yourself in this process. So really, really great conversations today, you guys. Thank you so much for being present in these sessions. We're at week 4 already. So next week, we're going to go from now decision to action. We're going to move into action next week. So we'll do a little recap and then we'll move to action. All right. Good to see you all. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Hi,
You got it.
everyone.
Bye.